What is going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another live stream. It is a massive day. Today it is massive. We're going to have a weekly close in the next couple hours. We are going to have a weekly close in the next couple hours. I'm going to talk about what the weekly close looks like as of right now. Potential damage. Is it bullish? Is it bearish? I'm also going to talk about some opportunities that you must take advantage of over the next couple days. I'm also going to talk about the low $50,000 range. I continue to believe that we are going to see the price of Bitcoin in the low $50,000 range after this consolidation is finally over. And I believe we are towards the end of this consolidation. So this is going to be a lovely live stream that is packed with a lot of value. Not only are we going to talk about Bitcoin, we are also going to talk about the altcoin markets. I want to take a look at the state of Ethereum, Solana, XRP, Sui, Zcash, and some of the top cryptocurrency altcoins. So, welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, I want to welcome you guys back to the channel. I hope that you are having an amazing weekend. If this is your first time right here, guys, just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. So hit the subscribe button, guys. If you're watching the stream, of course, would be great if you can hit the like button. But welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. As you guys can see, I'm no longer doing daily live streams. I'm trying to provide value. I'm trying to make sure I'm not repeating myself. So I think twice a week or maybe once a week, makes sense. At least right now, since not much has been happening in this market. Anyways, without wasting too much time, let's get to it, guys. Let's talk about this market. But for the last time, well, maybe not the last time, hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Smash the like button, guys. And of course, if you have some altcoins that you would like me to analyze, put them in the chat. But anyways, let's get it. All right, so Bitcoin is at $68,000, but forget about price. We are still ranging. We are still within this bearish pattern. To me, this is a bear flag, but some people say this is, this is a rising wedge. A rising wedge looks like this. A rising wedge pattern is going to look like this. Let me show you guys. It's going to look like this. You have some higher highs, and then you also have some higher lows. So if you look at Bitcoin's pattern right now, it does look like a rising wedge. You have higher highs, and then you also have higher lows. But also it looks like a bear flag. A bear flag looks like bear flag pattern looks like this. Also, you have the drop down, which is exactly this right here. This is a drop down, and then you have higher highs and higher lows. So you look at Bitcoin, higher highs, higher lows. Look, I believe we are in the final phase of this flag right here. We are in the final phase before we get something like this. All right. So I don't know how long this is going to take. Personally, I thought this was going to this was going to take place by March the 14th, which was last Sunday, right? Unfortunately, ended up going up to $76,000. Now got rejected. Looking at a pullback. Right now, you need to watch $65,000. 65,000 is right now a major support. What I'm going to say to you is this: if the price of Bitcoin goes below, if we get a daily close below this $65,600, I think that is going to be the confirmation of a breakdown. And what comes after, it could be, maybe a retest of the breakdown, or we just go straight into the $50,000 range. But anything below $65,600 is going to be extremely bearish, guys. Not only are we going to be, below this support right here. All right, below this $65,000 support, we are also going to be below this trend line right here. So if you go from this low right here, you connect it to this higher low right here, it gives us a nice trend line, guys. So with the price of Bitcoin below $65,000, that will mean we are below this trend line that is going to act as a support. So overall, this is a bearish pattern, and this is why I continue to warn you. This is why I continue to tell you that you need to be cautious. There's nothing to be, nothing to be excited about whenever the price of Bitcoin is in the low, mid $70,000 range. Always focus on the structure of the market, guys. There is nothing that is bullish about this. And if you guys remember, when the price of Bitcoin recently was above $70,000, I told you most likely we were going to get rejected. That was from this update right here, guys. This right here. Don't be fooled. All right, I told you guys this is not looking good. Yeah, yes, the price is in the $70,000 range, but if you focus on the structure, this is not what a bullish Bitcoin is going to look like. This is not a bullish structure. Many moon boys were already talking about $80,000 and $90,000, but guess what, guys? I don't think we see $80,000 looking like this. I don't think we get $90,000 looking like this. So this is really a game of patience. You gotta have to be patient. There's nothing to be excited about. The only time you should have any sort of excitement is if the price of Bitcoin was to break and close above this resistance line. So if we were to break and close above $75,000, then you can be bullish. Then you can start, looking at $80,000, $90,000. But as long as, we go above 70,000, but then we continue to close, remember, you have to get away from intraday price action, guys. Focus on where is the price by the end of each and every candle. Is it above? Is it below? So even if we go, look, we can even go to 80,000. As long as you end the day below this resistance right here, guys, we have not accomplished anything. So I don't know about you guys, but I am going to stay on the sideline. I am going to continue to speculate that it is only a matter of time. All right, it's only a matter of time before we see the price of Bitcoin in the $50,000 range. The last bearish consolidation lasted for about 60 days. All right, this was the last bearish consolidation. We had about 60 days of sideways price action. We are very close to 60 days. All right, if you go from right here, even right here, guys, all up to here, we're 44 days into this consolidation, guys. So the question is, do we go up again, to retest $75,000, or do we continue down, take out $65,000, maybe get some sort of a retest, get rejected, and then, push down into the $50,000 range? That to me is what the question should be. And I don't have an answer to that. I'm going to have to continue to be patient, wait for the market. All right. I'm going to allow the market to guide, let the market actually, be in the driver's seat. I don't want to be the person that is trying to dictate what the market should do. I am going to wait and wait and wait until I see confirmations. And right now, confirmations are closing below $65,000, closing above $75,000. To me, those are the only two confirmations that I need to worry about. As far as I'm concerned, there's really not much to talk about, guys. Look, do we want to zoom out? Actually, let's go down to the lower time. So if we go down to the lower time, on the 4-hour time frame, recently I talked about Bitcoin getting rejected by the 200 moving average on the 4-hour time frame. So got rejected, and look at the breakdown, guys. This is not looking good right here. This is happening for the very first time since this $65,000 low. So if you go from this $65,000 up to $75,000, Bitcoin was in a beautiful uptrend, higher highs, higher lows. But right now, we are in a clear downtrend, and this is the beginning of a downtrend because we had this pullback right here, all right, took out the previous lows. So we had that pullback, took out the previous lows right here. That was a major red flag. And then we had this retest right here, all right, ended up with a lower high. This is a lower high right here, guys. A first lower high since, this $65,000 low. And right now we have a lower low because Bitcoin has broken below $68,700. So this is not looking good for the bulls, even in the short term. With confirmation like this, to me, what this means is that we are more likely to revisit, $65,000. $65,000 is our next price target. And if we get to $65,000, the question is, I always go back to the same question. Do we bounce? All right. Do we get a bounce, or do we finally lose $65,000? Do we get a daily close below $65,000? And if that is the case, to me, what that will mean is we're going down into the $50,000 range. Let me just show you guys how much of an importance this $65,000 support is. $65,000 right here, it is basically the equivalent of, if we just go back, it is the equivalent of right here, people. It is the equivalent of $89,000. All right, back during this consolidation right here, I remember analyzing Bitcoin, and I said at the time during this pullback right here, if we lose $89,000, that could potentially mean that we're going straight down into the $60,000 range. And after we lost $89,000, guys, look, we tried to consolidate. I mean, we did consolidate for a couple of days, but there was only one way after, and that was a move down into the $60,000 range. So I'm looking at $65,000 right now, and I believe once we lose $65,000, it is only one way, guys, for Bitcoin, and that is down in the $50,000 range. Now, I want to make sure that I'm very clear. This is actually going to be an amazing opportunity, and the reason this is going to be an amazing opportunity is because we are due for a nice weekly bear market rally. So let me talk about what that will mean for the price of Bitcoin. So I believe once we go into the low $50,000 range, that is potentially somewhere around here, guys. I think the price of Bitcoin could potentially rally maybe 30 to 40%. So going from right here, guys, we could potentially get a rally, back to around $70,000. So this is going to be an opportunity that you must take advantage of. And if Bitcoin goes up about 40%, just imagine what some of these altcoins are going to do. The likes of Solana could potentially go from around $50, $40, back to around even $100. Going from 40, 50 back to around $100. This is almost a 140% rally. The likes of Sui. I'm looking at Sui right now, and Sui could potentially dump all the way down into the 40 cents range. So imagine a big rally from 40 cents, guys. We could potentially get back to around the 90 cents range. And this is easily an 80 to a 100% move. And of course, I'm not even talking about, low caps. Some of these low caps could potentially go up 100%, 200%, some even 300%. Yes, people, bear market rallies in the altcoin market, especially those low cap altcoins, are crazy. All right, this is how crazy some of these altcoins could potentially rally. 150, 200, even 300%. But anyways, this is not an update on altcoins. Wanted to give you guys an update on BTC. BTC is not looking good. It has not looked good since losing $98,000. Every single bullish price action, I am telling you right now, but I've said this before, is nothing but a bear market relief rallies. And they don't last. They don't last, people. And if you don't believe me, what I want you to do is go back and look at the performance of Bitcoin throughout this entire bear market since losing $98,000. Every single positive price action, all right, how long did it actually last? And did we ended up going up and achieving something more? No. All right, you look at this consolidation right here. Yes, we go from 80,000 to $97,000. But where are we right now? Are we higher or are we lower? Chat, BTC is at 68,000. Yes, we've gone from 60,000 to $76,000. But let me ask you a question. Have we accomplished anything? All right. Have we achieved anything? And the answer is no. And I'm telling you right now, people, just give it a couple days. We are going to be in the $50,000 range. Those who are bullish and those who are accumulating right now, I don't know what to tell you. I really, really don't know what to tell you. But as far as Bitcoin goes, that would be, the updates that I have. There's really nothing else to talk about. If I go to the weekly, I mean, what I've said to you guys is price is going to go sideways. This is going to allow, some of these moving averages to catch up to the price because, recently, at least a couple of weeks ago, my 21 weekly moving average was in the $90,000 range while the price of Bitcoin was around 60,000. That is not sustainable, guys. Right now, the 21 weekly is at $82,000. The 50 weekly moving average is at 89,000. Price of Bitcoin is at $68,000. Even this is not sustainable. But guess what? It's much closer to the price than, a couple of weeks ago. And before the bear market is over, what you are going to see is the 21 weekly is going to get very close to the price. If the low of the bear, this is a different conversation though. Let me not get into that. But BTC is bearish, and I'm expecting, Bitcoin to be in the $50,000 range sometimes over the next couple of days. You are just going to have to be patient. And the last thing I'm going to say with Bitcoin and the market, guys, forget about what's going on with the war between, Israel, US, and Iran. That has nothing to do with the price of Bitcoin. Look, are we going to see some negative price action due to, maybe Trump is tweeting or maybe something crazy is going on between, the conflict? Of course, guys. But let's be clear. Let's be honest. BTC has been in a bear market. All right. Price action has been bearish. I don't care what's going on in the Middle East. That has nothing to do with this right here. All right. This right here has been bearish for the last couple months. So let me know in the comment section, what do you think about Bitcoin? Are you accumulating right now? Are you still on the sideline? Do you think $60,000 was the low of the bear market? What are you thinking about? Once again, people, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, of course. But let's keep this going. I want to talk about altcoins because the altcoin market. Look, if Bitcoin goes down into the $50,000, some of these altcoins, I mean, we are looking at, minimum 30, 40, 50% crash. So you want to, You want to be careful. You want to be careful. Let me see this. All right, I'm going to start with Ethereum, and then we'll get into the other stuff. So, uh, as another reminder, so I actually analyzed Ethereum a couple of days ago, which is right here. And what I say to you was that, guys, we are going to be back in the range. So I was expecting the price of Bitcoin to be back in the range. This is exactly, well, not Bitcoin, Ethereum. This is exactly what has happened. Look, Ethereum, guys, is back in the range. Once again, this was, a major fake out. All right, big fake out. The Moon Boys, man, when they see price action like this, they go crazy. But always, always, zoom out and look at the bigger picture, right? Look at actually, let me read some of these chats first. XRP potential prediction. We can do that after. How do you think ZBCN will? We'll talk about ZBCN. Trying to wait towards the bottom before a buy back in. I think that's a great strategy. So, anyways, yeah, look, let's talk about these altcoins because, I mean, why not, right? Ethereum is back, almost below $2,000. And once again, look, I did an update on Ethereum literally a couple of days ago, guys. And what I said was, yes, this is a very big move. Yes, Ethereum has managed to break out of this, bearish pattern. But I thought this was a fake out, and I really thought we were about to get back into the range again. And, you look at the current price action, you look at where Ethereum is right now, this is exactly what we have, guys. Ethereum, this was a big fake out. Probably, a bunch of move boys got caught up in this, traded, got liquidated. We're back in the range. I believe, well, forget about believing stuff. I think, looking at this, we are going to see Ethereum somewhere around $1,300, over the next couple of days. How can we come up with, targets, guys? Look, you look at the distance between, this support right here and the resistance, that should give us a major target. So if we do get a breakdown, minimum, you're looking at a $1,500 Ethereum. I don't think, $1,500 is going to be the low of, it's going to be the low of this crash right here. I actually think, Ethereum is going much lower. And I believe, bare minimum is coming down to retest. Why don't we just do this? I'm looking at this entire range from $1,300 to $1,500. I am looking at this range right here. I think this is where you are going to see the price of Ethereum, once we get this breakdown. So a major key support is going to be right here. All right. Ethereum needs to stay. The only way we avoid that, we got to stay above $1,900, $1,912. If you get a daily close, below this support right here, basically you're also closing below this support. All right. You get a daily close below $1,900, that will be our confirmation. And I don't know what happens after. Do we get some sort of a retest that's rejected and then, we come down into the range, or, do we just go straight down? I will have to say, maybe you get some sort of a retest, maybe price, after the breakdown, maybe price goes back to around $2,000. We get rejected around here, and then, we push down into this $1,500 range. But this is a bearish pattern, guys. But basically, look, I think you might get something like this. This is what I'm kind of thinking about. You get a breakdown, you get a retest, and then boom, straight down, okay? But forgetting about price, all right? Focusing on the actual structure. Look, this is bearish, right? Is this a rising wedge? Is this a bear? Is a bear flag? Look, you can say this is a bear flag. I think this is a bear flag. You can also say this is a rising wedge. I wouldn't argue against that, right? What I do know is this is a bearish pattern, guys. I don't see a bullish pattern that looks like this. You go back to the bull market. This is what a bullish pattern looks like. This is an inverse head and shoulders pattern. You get the breakout, consolidation, retest, and then boom. All right, you come back right here, guys. Exactly the same thing right here. Look, big drop down, consolidation. All right, some higher lows, lower lows right here. You get a breakout, retest, boom, okay? But you go back to the bear market. Look, what we have is basically what we have back in the bear market right here, guys. You get a drop, all right, and then you consolidate. But then we ended up breaking down. So this is the breakdown right here. The moment we lost $2,400, you go from $2,400, straight down to $800, guys. Like this is just painful. There's another, bearish consolidation right here. Okay, so, you fast forward to, Ethereum current price. Like what do we have? Current structure. What do we have? Exactly the same bearish consolidations. All right, price, very big drop, bearish consolidation. Soon, we break down below $1,900. Maybe we get a retest, and then after that, straight down into this $1,300-$1,500 range. So this is not good for the bulls, man. Like I don't know who's bullish on this market. I don't know how people look at this market and say this is bullish. If you're looking at if you're listening to the Moon Boys and you are accumulating any of these stuff, honestly, I feel sorry for you. I really, really feel sorry for you. Look, hopefully it plays out. Hopefully price goes up and I'm wrong and we enter a new bull market and you make 2,000% in profits. But yeah, now with a setup like this, I'd rather stay on the sideline. Let's talk about Solana. Look, guys, what do we have? What do we have with Solana? Look, all right, Solana. This is a bearish consolidation, right? This is a rising wedge right here. So going back to here, we're looking for a rising wedge pattern. All right, guys, look, if that is not a rising wedge, with Solana, like honestly, then I don't know how to help you. All right, look right here, guys. You get the breakdown. All right, and then you have this right here: higher highs, higher lows, and look how narrow. All right, this is. So you go back to here, guys. Look, exactly the same thing. So if I'm looking at Solana, look, once you lose around $85, you are basically out of the range. Do we lose this 85, this trend line support, and maybe we do a retest that is rejected, and then we flash all the way down? Or, if you want to be safer, the other way to look at it is, I'm looking at $80, all right? $80 is a major, major support. Once we go below $80, that means we have basically broken this structure right here, all right? Higher highs, higher lows. Higher highs, higher lows. So once you go below $80, it's a straight line into the $50 range, all right? How can we come up with targets? Well, you can go with, the distance between the range, right? So if you take this right here and then we do like this gives us a target of, basically back to the base, $67. But I think we're going all the way down into the 50s, guys. The same way, all right, this bearish consolidation right here. The same way, and put this right here, same way this bearish consolidation, sent us, down to 67, but look where we came from. The breakdown took place around $127. This is basically a 50% crash. Look, I believe we got a very big drop coming. Again, could it be days? I don't think this is going to take weeks. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Anyways, the focus, though, should be on, the structure. This is a bearish structure right here. Why would anyone be accumulating Solana right now? It is mind-boggling, to be very honest. Look, there's a very good, definitely going into the 50s. There's a very good chance you get a $30 Solana before the end of this bear market. But right now, though, I'm going to say $50 looks, hold on. I'm going to say $50 looks very attractive to me. So, look, even if you pay me, I wouldn't touch Solana. Even if you pay me, guys, even if you put dollars in my pocket, I wouldn't touch this project because they're just nothing but bullish right here. Even if you look at the 200 average, look at the 200 moving average, guys, $128. What is the price? Look at the price of Solana. Look how far we are from the 200 moving average. Trust me, you do not want to do anything. You go back to, last bear market, guys. I mean, just look at the gap, throughout the bear market between price and the 200 moving average. Until we get closer to this 200 moving average, stay away if you want to play safe. All right. What this means is, price of Solana will have to rally all the way up to around 128, consolidate, and then finally we get a breakout, just like back here, guys. All right. We had to go from $8 all the way up to around $30, consolidate it, finally get a breakout, and then bull market all over again. So this is not, it's just not looking good. And if you zoom out, you go to the monthly. I mean, what have I been saying to you guys? When the monthly looks like this, the biggest mistake you can make is think this is bullish and this is a buy opportunity and continue to dollar cost average. Also, let's talk about this, guys. The month of February, we closed below $95. This is a red flag right here. So to me, what this means is we are more likely to see a continuation of this monthly pullback. And in terms of support, guys, chat, I mean, look, let's just be honest right here. Where is the support on the monthly? Guys, we don't have a support until we get to around $48. All right. Once you lose 48, you start looking at 26. Once you lose 26, you basically start looking at, the mid $10 range. Different conversation. Yes. Not here to talk about going down below $20, but just keep your eyes on, the structure of every single one of these altcoins. Just don't get sucked into, going from top to current price. We're down about 60% and think this is a reason to be a buyer. If this is your reason to be a buyer, we're down 70%. You're going to be in trouble. I'll tell you that right now. Because Solana, easily another 80% crash from here, guys. Easily. All right, this is not hard, guys. Easily another 80% crash. Going from $87. Like, this is how crazy this is. An 80% crash going from here. Look, it's a $16 Solana. This is not bad, guys. It's basically retesting this support right here. And this is not a prediction. I'm just showing you levels. I am just showing you levels. Now let's talk about other altcoins. Let's talk about XRP. All right. XRP. All right. This one, I don't think I'm going to waste too much time on it, but this is my range between 40 and 70 cents. This is where I see the price of XRP, before the end of this bear market. But anyways, let's just look at the structure right now. So what do we have again? This is a bearish structure right here, guys. Look. All right. Actually, this one is even breaking down right now. So XRP looks like it could potentially lead, the crash of these altcoins. All right. Then we put another train line right here. Like, I don't know if this is the way we want to approach this, or just put a train line right here. All right. Basically, you had this fake breakout. Now you have price came back into the range to this little triangle right here. But, this time we are breaking down. So if XRP was truly going to be bullish, then we would have seen this right here. Price would have bounced off support and we would have continued higher. Right now is what I'm looking at right now is, do we get the opposite of that? Like, do we actually get this retest, rejection, and then all the way down? So anyways, if I'm looking at XRP, my very first target, of course, is going to be retesting this $1.12 support. All right. I don't think this is going to hold. I believe we're going below $8. All right. So if we are on this daily right here, guys, I'm going to say you are looking at XRP somewhere. I think we're going below $1. I'm going to say we're going to come back to refill this wick right here. So somewhere around 78 cents. This is where I see XRP, once we get this drop down. So if you go from right here, guys, look, first target, of course, we got some targets. $1. So this is a 27% drop. But if we come all the way down here, this is a 40% drop. So this is not something that I would rule out. All right, 77 cents is a real target for XRP once this is confirmed, hold on, once this consolidation or pullback has finally lose this support right here, I'm looking at 77 cents, which is a 44% crash. So XRP, holders of XRP, like this is not a time to be bullish on this project. You are making some very big mistake. What I said to you guys, a couple of weeks ago was actually very simple. If you have altcoins, just get into Bitcoin, guys. Convert your altcoins into Bitcoin. And I know some of you guys, you think that is a crazy idea because, altcoins are already down about 60, 70, some even 80, even 90%. You are probably thinking that is ridiculous because, why should I convert my altcoins into Bitcoin when I'm already down, 70, 80%? Guys, you got to think about Satoshi value. Right? You got to think about your the value of your altcoins in Satoshis, not in dollars, man. Because your XRP, the same XRP that you are holding right now, that is down 80%. Right? If you can convert that into Bitcoin, yes, price continues to go down. Yes, the price of Bitcoin will go down. But I promise you, those XRP that was converted into Bitcoin is going to be able to purchase more XRP once the bear market is over. All right. And if you don't know what that means, do your research. Do your research, people. You need to convert your altcoins. Yes, it's bad. Yes, you down 90%. But you need to preserve the Satoshi value. You want to make sure not only are you diminishing your USD value, you want to make sure your Bitcoin value is not diminished. And the longer you continue to hold on to your altcoins, the more the value of your Satoshis will continue to diminish. All right? Convert, guys. You have to convert them. And again, it may not make sense, but it will make sense someday to you. Someday it will make sense. All right? Forget about the fact that you're down 70, 90%. Bitcoin is going to be your rescue. Bitcoin is your insurance. Anyways, altcoins, they just don't look good. They just don't look good. Unless you are a day trader, unless you day trade in this market, I don't think you should do anything. Stay on the sideline. Continue to watch what goes on in this market. All right, keep your ears on new narratives and what could potentially be hot going into the next bull market. But in terms of accumulation, I wouldn't do anything. Personally, I wouldn't do. I'm not even doing anything, to be honest. All coins are cooked. Bitcoin is cooked. Stay on the sideline, people. All right, what else? What else is here to talk about? What do you guys want to hear? What do you want me to analyze? What else are you interested in? And once again, though, hit the like button. Make sure we subscribe. Subscribe. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. This is the only time you are going to see me streaming until, sometimes midweek, because I don't want to be streaming every single day anymore. All right, there is no value. Daily streaming, there's just no value, guys. Like, we are looking at it. This is the same Bitcoin from the last couple of weeks. All right, this is the same Bitcoin from the last couple of weeks. Old coins, exactly same old coins. Like, nothing has changed. So, instead of live streaming daily, I think it makes sense to live stream twice a week. Midweek, I give you a live stream. Sunday, I give you another live stream. I think that should be the way to go. But I do appreciate you guys for tuning in. I do appreciate you guys for being patient. So, Lee, what's up, buddy? Hope you are well. Yeah, I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well too, buddy. All right, hopefully all is good. Yeah, other than my favorite team lost today, my Arsenal lost to Man City today. Other than that, I'm doing great, guys. And just because I'm not live streaming, guys, I have not lost hope in the cryptocurrency market. It's just that, when I do this, I want to provide value. And I can't provide value if this is what we have today. If Bitcoin is in this range, all right? If Bitcoin is in this range today, and tomorrow we are still in the same range, to me, it doesn't make any sense to give you a new update tomorrow because I'm more likely to basically say the same thing. So it makes sense to, give it some time. Let's wait for some new data and then, give you guys an update. Right now, to be honest, guys, like unless we go below 65,000, unless we go above $75,000 on a daily close, there is really nothing new to talk about. Like, it's literally nothing. And I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to come up with excuses. I don't want to talk about, the reason why the price of Bitcoin is down today is because of what's going on in the midnight. I don't care about any of that stuff. All right. Now, I mean, I do care about, people, of course, guys. Hopefully, all that stuff stops. But, in terms of this, I want to focus on the charts. I want to focus on technical analysis, right? I do not want to say this is the reason, outside of technical analysis. I don't want to be the person that says this is the reason the market is down today. The market was supposed to be bullish. $60,000 was the low. But because of what's going on in the Middle East, now, we have lost 60,000 and we're going lower. No, I don't want to be that person. What I want to do is I want to look at the market. I want to look at the charts and analyze it. And you guys know, after we lost $98,000, what I say to you is every single rally is a bear market rally. Every single rally is not going to last. And what you are more likely to see whenever we have a consolidation, it is a bearish consolidation. And this is exactly what we continue to see time and time and time again. So Bitcoin is bearish. This consolidation right here is not bullish. If you are a day trader, all right, then this is a different conversation because, a day trader is going to spend some time looking at maybe the 5-minute charts, and they are going to position themselves, when Bitcoin is breaking out. So like this is a breakout right here around 71,000, and they are probably looking at exiting around $74,000. So this was a time to be bullish right here. And then look at this breakdown right here. All right, the moment the price lost this support right here around $73,000, this was a time to short BTC, targeting either $71,000 or $70,000, and this was a 4% move. But I'm just not that person. I don't want to waste my time looking at this because this is not how I want to make money in this market. What I want to focus on, or at least what I do focus on, is weekly and monthly structures, and of course, daily structure. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take advantage of a move like this where, price goes from $74,000 to $126,000, but the confirmation comes in around, $85,000. All right, this is the entry. Maybe I'm exiting somewhere around here. This is a 40% move. All right, it's not a 4% move. It's a 40% move. All right, and in terms of the long-term outlook, I want to be a person that is patient and on the sideline, and I wait for long-term structures to take place. I remember I was buying Bitcoin below $20,000 in 2022. I bought more Bitcoin below $25,000, and I became bullish once we broke above $20,000. So I want to be the person that grabs a position right here around $20,000, all right, and capture a 400% move, over 2, 3, 4 years. This is what I want to focus on, not just in the cryptocurrency market, but also in the equity market, because I'm looking at Nvidia right now, people. And yes, Nvidia has been bullish, still is bullish right now, but this consolidation right here, to me, I want to be a person that stays on the sideline, because I think, once we lose, and look, you can make a case that this weekly close right here was actually the beginning of the breakdown. Once we lose support, I'm looking at, basically right here. Once you lose the support, you look at an Nvidia that could potentially come all the way back into, some of these levels right here, even around $130. All right. So when you go to the weekly, you realize actually this could potentially be a head and shoulders pattern. All right. And then this is the neckline right here. So once we get this breakdown, we could potentially push all the way down. All right. And then when you go to the monthly, what am I interested in? Well, I'm looking at Nvidia and I'm looking at my 10 monthly moving average. If Nvidia goes below $172 on a monthly close, to me, that is a bearish confirmation. And I'm no longer bearish on Nvidia until price can get back above the 10 monthly moving average. I don't mess with anything that's below the 10 monthly. All right. That to me is a long-term average. And in terms of being bullish and bearish, I only want to mess with anything that's above the 10 monthly. Anything that's below the 10 monthly, guys, I don't want no part of it. Like right here, to me, this was the time to get out. But then, 2 months after, price got back above the 10 monthly. So this was the time to be bullish again from 130 until, even right now, still very bullish. I would actually say this is a good time to be a buyer, but you cut your stop loss if we get a monthly close below 172. I don't want to talk about equity market, though. I want to keep our focus on crypto and Bitcoin. But I've talked about Bitcoin. I've talked about some of these altcoins. What are you guys interested in? What would you like me to analyze? Is there something that you would like me to cover? Oh, ZB. Let me talk about ZB. ZBC. I think I have that on my watch list. All right, right here. So, look, very bearish. There's really not much to say about this. Very bearish. And in terms of targets, I'm basically looking at this range right here. I'm looking at the absolute lows of sometimes June 2024 until April of 2025. So if I'm looking at ZB right here, this is a weekly, guys. I mean, this is a clear trend line. Every time price tries to do something, we continue to get rejected. Every time we literally continue to get rejected. Right now, the only way for me to be bullish long term on ZB is if price can manage to get above 0.003, excuse me. All right, that breaks the structure of this downtrend. If this leads to a pullback, then I want price to now break above this right here, 0.002. But anyways, what we have right here is basically a continuation of all of this right here. So this bullish price action is basically this right here. It is basically this right here. And it's basically this right here. And as you can see, every one of this bullish price action, we actually ended up much lower. So after this rally, we ended up with basically a 60% crash. After this rally, we ended up with basically a 40% crash. After this rally, we ended up with a 58% crash. So if you basically do the average, 60, 40, 50, I believe, average maybe 45. So after this rally, look, a 45% drop, it basically brings us back to around here, This is the support right here, guys. But once you go below 0.0014, I mean, look, this is really the target. Like the target is right here. Even if this is not a target, what I would say is, look, just keep your eyes on this range right here. We've already kind of retested the range, but I think it is only a matter of time, before we are not only retested, before we are comfortably trading inside of the range. If price can break to the other side of this yellow line, if we can get to, the other side of this yellow line right here, then, we'll have to have a new conversation, because this could be the accumulation range going into the next bull market. But as of right now, I mean, I'm looking at a project that is bearish. Right now I'm looking at a project that is bearish. You hook your boy up with the ZBCM bottom. Nice. Hey, I'm glad I can help. Let me see. What's that CC? Is this the one right here? Oh no. 1008. Yeah, I mean ZB, you gotta have to be patient. Definitely gotta have to be patient. Look, I'm looking at Zcash. You see Zcash right here. Like, this is another one. It's a lot easier, man. If you're not careful, like, it's a lot easier to be misled. Look, Zcash was recently around 295, right? But look at Zcash right now, guys. Look, where are we? Not only are we back in the low $200 range, but Zcash, once we go below 193, like, this is going down below $100. So if you're not careful with a bunch of this stuff, you are going to get blown out. Like there's nothing here in terms of like support. There's really nothing. Right here, like inside of this bar right here, guys, there's nothing. You go from, this is for $60 to around 165. Like, there's nothing right here. The only time you may find some sort of a support, so you gotta go all the way back to 2022. Like, that is just crazy. Canton. Session Network. Oh, Canton Network. Oh, let me see this right here. Yeah, you guys, you gotta be careful. I mean, this does not have some data, but the data is limited. But yeah, that's okay, right? So, I mean, this isn't an uptrend though, at least on the daily. As long as price stays above 10 cents, you are good. As long as price stays above 10 cents, should be good. This one should be good right here. This is not a bearish consolidation. This is actually a bullish consolidation. So what I would say is, I'm going to go down to the lower time. So you have a trend line right there. Let me go to the lower time. There we go. Let me do this. So you have this pullback right here. What I would say is this. Hey, what's going on? Just getting tired or something. So yeah. Anyway, what's going on right here is, this is a healthy pullback, because this is an uptrend. This is an uptrend on the daily. I don't think this is a bearish. This is actually a bullish consolidation in my eyes. If I'm looking at this on the 4-hour, let's see what we have right here. I want to see if we got some bullish divergency. Let me see. So RSI looks very interesting. MACD right here. Yeah, I think we got some bullish divergency right here. I will actually say, I'll be a buyer right here, actually. I'll tell you where stop loss could be. So, yeah, I see some bullish divergency right here. Look at, as price has been going sideways, not really down. If we go from here, or maybe down actually. So here's 14 cents. Look at where the MACD is. We get the pullback, goes up, pullback again. MACD is higher, but the price is lower. So I like that. So a couple of things here. We could potentially get a double bottom. I wouldn't put a stop loss right here because we could potentially go lower, but I will put a stop loss below 13 cents. As long as you manage risk, I think you should be fine. So let's see what we get here. Do we get a double bottom? Or if you don't want to do anything here, then what you do is you wait for the price to break above 1480. All right. So wait for the price to do this. Wait for price to do this. And then wait for the pullback. The pullback is where you can take advantage of. But of course, you need a bounce first. If you get a pullback and then you get a bounce, you are a buyer with a stop loss just right below these lows right here. That is exactly how I will play this. If you want to be more safer, then you want to wait for price to be on the other side of this yellow line. So this is the downtrend on the daily. So if you can wait until price overtakes 15 cents and then take advantage of the pullback. So wait for something like this. Goes above 15 cents. Wait for a pullback that gives you a bounce. You want to be a buyer there with a stop loss just right below 14 cents. Manage your risk because you don't want to risk too much. Then you should be able to ride this all the way out, all the way back to around 19 cents. So let's talk about what this looks like from a trading perspective and risk management and all that good stuff. If you can break about 15, let's say we go to 16 and then you get a pullback. Let's say the pullback is around 15 again and then you go up to 15.50, all right? So this is the entry. Stop loss is just right here, all right? You have a stop loss of about 10% of your capital. And in terms of what you're going after is a 25% move. This is a really, really good trade. Remember, do not take on too much risk. So let's say you have a $5,000 portfolio. Maybe this is a $500 position. All right, this is a $500 position. And within this $500, your risk is no more than 10%, which means your risk is only about 50 cents. All right, so risk is no more than, hopefully I'm doing my math correct, no more than 10%. $50 will be what you are risking. So even if this goes wrong, you're still fine. You still got, $4,000, and you add the $450 from this trade right here. Basically, still looking at a very good account, and you only lost about $50. But if you are right, then you get 25% of this $500 right here, which is more than that 10% risk. So this is exactly how I will play this. I think this one looks really bullish on the daily. I can't really comment on the weekly because we just don't have data. Like, this right here is just not enough data for me. It is in an uptrend, higher highs, higher lows, but I'd rather focus on the daily structure. There's more data right here. You can see more stuff. And when you go down to the 4 hour, there's even more data on the 4 hour, and you can see more. So that's exactly how I will play this. Cashed out my 401k for crypto in the long run. I believe it will pay off. Look, I'll tell you that you have to be careful. I wouldn't recommend taking out your 401k to get into crypto. I think that's extremely risky. I mean, if you're younger, maybe the risk is worth it, but yeah, I wouldn't do it. Personally, I wouldn't do it, guys. Yeah, stay in Bitcoin. Stay in Bitcoin. And if you want to branch out, if you want to get into altcoins, it should be no more than 5% of your capital. Yeah, I wouldn't take my 401k into the cryptocurrency market. I think that's extremely risky, especially if you are someone who is even over 35. I wouldn't do it. Yeah, If you over 40, definitely not. But look, if you are in your early 20s, maybe the risk is worth it. But I mean, even yeah, that's tough though. I think your 401k, that's like your foundation. That's something that's more stable that you don't have to worry about on a daily basis. I mean, not just on a daily basis. You don't have to worry about your 401k even on a monthly basis, right? Maybe a couple years, that's when you try to pay attention. You're like, oh, let me see what's going on. But yeah, most of the time you're not really doing too much. Too late? No, you're not late. You're not late. As long as you haven't bought anything, I think you're not late. Yeah, you can. Yeah, look, I'll say be careful. Definitely be careful because chasing profits is great, but protecting your capital is that should be the aim. Try to protect your capital and don't blow your account. Anyways, the cryptocurrency market, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I don't know what else to really talk about. The market is bearish. Yo, guys, you gotta be careful who you follow. You got to be careful. Over the next couple hours, we are going to get a weekly close. So BTC, look at this is not a good looking weekly candle, guys. BTC is about to close its weekly candle for the week of what week is this? I think we only got one more week in March. So we're about to get a weekly close, and this is not looking good. The open was, the open was right here. All right, we opened this week around 70 in the higher $72,000 range, and look at where we are right now. Anything else? Anything else that people are interested in? I did XRP, I did ZB, I did Solana, Ethereum, we did Bitcoin. Well, actually, let me get rid of all of this. Let me just kind of, look at this market from, indicator perspectives. So the super trend, we're going to keep this on the weekly. The super trend, a very reliable indicator. Look, the super trend is extremely bearish, guys. Bitcoin weekly super trend still says to you, stay on the sideline. The only way for Bitcoin to go back into a bull market, based on the super trend, we need to break above $93,000. This indicator was very reliable in the last bull market. You could have bought. It gave us a buy signal around $22,000. I don't know how many of you guys bought Bitcoin at $22,000 in the last bear market, and you would have sold, all right, around $96,000. This was a, in terms of profits, this would have been a 330% profit. 330%, guys. This was a really, really good trade. So right now, the super trend says stay on the sideline until Bitcoin can get above, 93,000. And I'm going to be honest with you. Just looking at this super trend right here, this bear market goes on for, a few more months. Because before we turn bullish on the weekly, this bullish signal is going to be very close to the price, guys, because when you think about this right here, look, the low is $15,000. The bullish signal is just around 22,000. So right now the price is at 68,000. Bullish confirmation is not until 93,000. So this is not closer to the price. I think before we get like a bullish confirmation, this has got to be way, way closer to the price. So if the low is around, let's say the low of the bear market is, let's just go with $38,000. I think the super trend signal is going to be maybe somewhere around $45,000. But anyways, that is a super trend, still very bearish on the weekly. And then you look at the Bollinger Bands, all right? Bollinger Bands, you're looking at this blue line right here. So as long as price is below this blue line, you are in a bear market. The blue line is currently around $82,000. But the blue line is a 20 weekly moving average. So 82,000. Only way for us to be bullish, guys, we got to be above this blue line right here. If you go back to the last bear market going into the bull market, we broke above the blue line around 18,000 with a weekly close exactly at $20,800. So this is, we got some work to do. And then I got this Ichimoku cloud. Look, based on this indicator, we just entered the bear market actually. So I'm expecting a continuation of this, until we break above the Ichimoku cloud, going back to the last bear market, going into the bull market. We didn't break above the cloud until 30,000. I mean, once you break into the cloud, that is normally, a very good signal. So we didn't break into the cloud until $25,000, $26,000, $29,000. This time around, what is the cloud right now? The cloud is from, 84,000 until $93,000. So only if Bitcoin was to push into the cloud, guys, should you be bullish. But again, way too far. I don't think this is happening anytime soon. So price action is bearish. Indicators are bearish. Why are you trying to be bullish? Why are you trying to be bullish and fight the trend? All right. So, what else do I have going on? All right, people. I think I'm just gonna, I'm gonna end it right here. But once again, appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll do live streams twice a week. I think I'm gonna do either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. That'll be the first live stream, and then, the second live stream, I'm gonna try my best to make sure it is always Sunday afternoon. It's gonna be kind of tough because I'm busy right now. I'm gonna get even more busier, but I'm gonna try to make sure I deliver updates. But outside of live streaming, I will also try to give you guys some updates. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, let me not promise anything. We'll see how this goes. Appreciate you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. Hopefully you hit the like. Hopefully you hit the sub if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys sometimes midweek.